Purgatory 21. It is better to purge or endure purgatory in this world or in the next. It is preferable to purge oneself in this world or in the next. Let us first remember that purgatory is absolutely necessary for every man without exception. I would say that to fully understand that every man without exception must acquire a debt to himself, like the grain of wheat that falls to the ground, that dies, and by which can then bear fruit, that Christ himself lived. It is the Epistle to the Hebrews chapter 5 verse 8 that states this clearly. And if it was not written, I would say that I am talking nonsense, because Christ does not need to be purified because he never sinned. The reality is that in fact it requires more than that to see God face to face, and in his holy humanity he no doubt escapes this rule. The Epistle to the Hebrews says, "He, Jesus, who brought before the Father through all kinds of cries, supplications, the supplication of the one who could eventually deliver him from death. Being the Son he learned obedience from what he suffered. And then when he was made perfect, he was able to become for us a model of sanctification, a priest according to the order of Melchizedek. When he was made perfect, why did Christ go there? Sure, to provide us with a model to follow, but not just that. When he experienced despair, my God, why have you forsaken me? His heart had been transformed. It had passed from a total purity, that of obedience, that of the Immaculate Conception, a purity of one who obeys, who loves in joy, to the purity of someone whose heart has been broken by suffering, someone who is kenosis, such as a poor man with downcast eyes and trembling hands. When he welcomes us at the hour of death, we see that he is not only gentle and humble in heart, he is similar to us. He has suffered, and that changes everything. So, to the question, since you have to go through the cross, it is better to endure them while on earth or in the next world? Well, the answer will be determined by the question, where do you suffer the least? It is true that when we look at the church fathers, they say we suffer considerably less while on earth because our bodies lessen the suffering as long as we remain busy with our activities. In the purgatory that follows this life, they may say that a single day of suffering is the equivalent of almost 10 years of suffering on earth. Well, I will allow myself, with all due respect, not to follow them into that territory. It seems to me that the time when one suffers the most while on earth, at the hour of death before Christ, or in purgatory after the last judgment, is the time when one suffers despair, whatever its cause. And when it is said in the image of Christ, my God, why hast you forsaken me? Anxiety is not total suffering. Despair is total suffering, to the point that there is nothing more severe. Physically suffering compared to joy is nothing. But for anxiety, and especially in the case of despair, individuals may throw themselves under trains. The little Theresa of the Child Jesus, a doctor of the church, states this herself after suffering not only from the tuberculosis that was suffocating her, but also from the absence of God, the night of the Spirit. I now understand those who kill themselves. In fact, is it better to do this purgatory in this world or in the next? The answer will not come from the intensity of suffering, since in heaven every saved man will have experienced this passage through despair. The answer, it seems to me, comes from efficiency. It seems to me that when it's lived while on earth, it appears to be more swift. When it is lived after the vision of Christ in total joy in the certainty of being saved, it is necessary that time passes, that vitality that one has received when seeing Christ wears out, and it must be extremely long. That is why in Fatima, the Blessed Virgin Mary, when asked about the news of a little Amelia who died at the age of 17, she replied to Sister Lucie, "She is in purgatory until the end of the world," is said. But what could this 17-year-old girl do? Nothing. She had done nothing. She was probably just a very lively person who glad to be saved when she arrived at purgatory. Well, maybe she liked it because it is also a place of joy where one is sure to be saved. So obviously, on the other hand, since purgatory at its peak is a time of despair, so a night of the spirit, not a sin but a trial, I believe it is absolutely necessary to go through the Blessed Virgin, especially in our time, to ask her to beg her not to do it when one is in charge of souls, either a family with small children or when one is a priest, like Don Bosco and children. I would say that it can't happen. One could ask the Blessed Virgin that it might happen for religious people in the prime of their youth for a while so that they may mature, but more often or more likely if they have to go there due to old age at a time when no one is hurt. What is certain, however, is that the idea that it may come during old age, and atheists understand this, should not lead to deciding on euthanasia. The use of euthanasia is for terminating such suffering. One does not desire to go through these anxieties, as it appears to be a waste of time and requires to do the work that ought to have been done in the last days of life, in the last weeks, rather than to do the purification in the next world, since no one can see God without dying first of all to oneself. Obviously, this is easier said than done. You must possess a clear mind about this issue, and the Lord well knows this.